Hello everyone and welcome to another video. So this video is going to be my 23 books to read in 2023 video. Last year I made a 22 books to read in 2023 video and I really enjoyed making that video. And so I figured this year I would make a 23 books to read in 2023 list and go through those books I have on it. Some of the books that are on this list were on last year's list as I didn't finish them, so they automatically moved over to this list. I'll just run through you guys those books rather quickly, and then we'll go into depth the newer books that I have added to this list, because last year I actually did read some of those books that were on that list. So let's get into it. So the first book on this list is Finale by Stephanie Garber. This is book number 3 in her Caraval series. In 2021, I reread both Caraval. The second book in the series, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but I read both of those books last year. I really enjoyed Caraval. I gave it 4 stars, and the second book I gave 5 stars. Not entirely certain why I haven't picked up Finale by Stephanie Garber yet. I think it's with some series, I got at least the ones that I'm not as interested in. I tend to leave them off for a while, and I think that's the reason why I haven't read this one yet. But I'm hoping to possibly get it to read it in 2023, as it'll finish off a series. The second book on this list is Vanishing Stair by Maureen Johnson. This is the second book in the Truly Devious series. I actually reread Truly Devious last year in 2022. Now I'm all fresh and caught up and ready to read The Vanishing Stair. Hopefully I will read it sooner rather than later, as I don't really want to read Truly Devious for a third time and then finish it. Truly Devious is a amateur sleuthing YA novel, very much like the TV show Wednesday. So if you like the TV show Wednesday, I highly recommend you trying out the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson. I'm really looking forward to reading book 2, The Vanishing Stair, as I gave Truly Devious 5 stars when I read it. The third book on this list is Frostheart 3, Rise of the World Eater by Jamie Littler. In 2021, I read both Frostheart and Frostheart 2, Escape from Aurora by Jamie Littler in 2021. And like Finale by Stephanie Garber, I just haven't continued. This is a middle grade series. It'd be really easy for me to finish. And I'm hoping we can cross off this series in 2023. The next book I have on this list is actually a book that was on last year's list in 2022, but I actually didn't have a physical copy at the time, and now I actually have a physical copy of it, and that is The Kingdom of Copper by S.A. Chakraborty. In 2021, I started the David Bad trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty, and I really enjoyed book 4, and I gave it 4 stars, and I've heard the series just gets better and better. And because I own the first book in paperback, I decided to get the second book in paperback as well. So I'm very looking forward to continuing with this trilogy in 2023. S.A. Chakraborty is coming out with another trilogy, the first of which comes out in 2023, which is the Adventures of Mani al-Sarif. And that book actually comes out at the end of next month in February, and I'm hoping to read it in March, as I'm really looking forward to that one, because I think the premise of that one is pirates, and especially female pirates, and I love a good seafaring, high seas pirate adventure. So I've picked that book up as well, but The Kingdom of Copper is on my 23 books to read 2023 list, as it's a series I've already started at least book 1, and I need to definitely continue, because I liked the first book in the David Bad trilogy. The fifth book on this list is A Torch Against the Night by Sabaa Tahir. This is the second book in her Ember in the Ashes quartet. I really enjoyed Ember in the Ashes. I give it 4 stars. Very fast writing, very easy to get into. I was kind of hooked from it when reading it, and I could easily read 50 to 60 pages in half an hour. I'm really looking forward to continuing this series in 2023. Let's see if I get to it. I almost read it actually last year in 2022. I don't really know what kind of happened with it. I think I just changed my mind and decided to read another book instead. The sixth book on this list is a book that I'm actually currently reading at this time, so the book will definitely be finished in 2023, and that is Our Dark DeWitt by V.E. Schwab. This is the second book in the Monsters of Verity duology by V.E. Schwab. I love V.E. Schwab's writing style. I've read most of her books so far, including both the Vicious books, Vicious and Vengeful by V.E. Schwab, 5-star series to me. I've read Agaroo, 5-star series. I've read Gallant by V.E. Schwab. I read the first book, The Savage Song by V.E. Schwab. And I've read the first book. I can't remember. What's the one with the Red Londons? I've read the first book in that trilogy as well, and I really enjoyed it. So, I'm actually reading this book right now for Final Book Support Group, which is this weekend. And I'm really looking forward to reading this book. I'm about 23 pages so far into this, and so far it's gripping a whole lot like Vengeful did. So this book will definitely get read in 2023. The next book on this list, book number 7 for me to read, is a book that's actually on my January TBR, and that is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, also known as first book in her Crescent City Quartet, I think it's going to be. I've heard kind of, not mixed feelings about the Crescent City series. I've heard a lot of people like this first book, and then draws on from here. I'm right now torn which Sarah J. Maas book to start with, but I put this book on this list as this is urban fantasy, and I think it'd be a nice jump into Sarah J. Maas' writing if I at least read this one first, and then we read Avatar. Then we kind of figure out our reading order to go for Sarah J. Maas. As this, Crescent City, I think this one would be a great one to start with for me because it's urban fantasy, and I like urban fantasy style books, and because it's big, I can probably easily read it a lot quicker. I actually started reading this book last year in 2022. I read it a weekend in March, got to about 200 pages, and then put it down. Not because I was having problems reading it, but because I just had a lot of other stuff going on at the time, and I decided it was too big of a book for me to handle at that one moment, and I kind of was playing around with the idea of not having TBRs, and then the idea of having a TBR. And now that I have a TBR, I think putting it on an actual TBR might get me to actually pick it up. And if I like this book, we can figure out my actual reading order for Sarah J. Maas. So because this book is on my January TBR for 2023, it will probably get read in 2023. Book number 8 on this list is another book by Sarah J. Maas. It's the other book and probably the series I should definitely continue with after I've at least read Crescent City, and that is Avatar, Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This would be my jump into sort of fantasy romance as a genre. I've had 2 books in another sort of fantasy romance series, and I really enjoyed that one, and I think I'm probably going to like the Avatar series because it is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and Beauty and the Beast is my favorite so far at this moment Disney princess stories, Beauty and the Beast. So I'm thinking I'm really going to like Avatar. I just kind of want to start with Crescent City because I own it physically. But I'm hoping to also read Avatar in 2023, as I've heard a lot of people like the Avatar series, so looking forward to that. Book number 9 is actually a book that was my first read of 2023. So I've already read this book this month, and it can be crossed off this list. But I figured I should still mention this book in this video, because I put it on this list anyways. And that is The Son of Neptune by Rick Riordan. This is the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan, which is a continuation 5-book series that falls directly after Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Percy Jackson and the Olympians is a nostalgic book series for me, which I have read before. I've actually already read this book before, back towards when it came out in the early 2010s. I read this book for the first time, and I'm rereading this series. Last year I reread Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This year I'm going to be continuing my reread of the Heroes of Olympus, because Rick Riordan in September is releasing another Percy Jackson book that follows after these ones, called Percy Jackson and Chalice of the Gods, which follows Percy, Annabeth, and Grover again. But I think it'd be best to read this series before this, and definitely before I continue with the more books in Trials of Apollo. I've only read the first one of that right now, and I think I need to reread this series in order for me to continue. So I've actually already read this book, so this book will be crossed off. The 10th book on this list is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is the first book in the Red Rising series, the first 3 of which have already been published. The second 2 of his next trilogy have been published, and we're just waiting on the 3rd book. This is a dystopian series set on the planet Mars, and it's in which this class is taking advantage of the lower class and having them mine the planet for resources when in fact they really don't need to, and there's a rebellion. I think I'm actually going to really enjoy this series, as I think the concept is driven somewhat from Les Mis, which, not my favorite book. Actually, I've never read Les Mis as a book, but I have seen the musical way too many times. So I think possibly the Red Rising series is possibly a play on that series as well, and the French Revolution as a whole. So I'm pretty certain I'm going to really like the Red Rising series. Book number 11 is Silverborn, The Mystery of Morgan Crow by Jessica Townsend. This is Jessica Townsend's new release in her Morgan Crow series, the first of which being Nevermore. At this current moment in time, I've actually read books 1, 2, and 3, so I'm all caught up, and I'm ready to read Silverborn when it comes out at the end of, in November. I think Wondersmith is my favorite so far, and these books have definitely gotten better as they've grown, and it can only go up from here. The 12th book on this list is A Wilderness of Stars by Shea Earnshaw. The only other book I've read by Shea Earnshaw before was I read The Wicked Deep, and I really enjoyed that book series. It's my first take on the whole siren book series, and I liked The Wicked Deep, but I think I'm really going to like A Wilderness of Stars a lot better by Shea Earnshaw, as it's about astrology. This book is already out. I just don't have a physical copy of it yet. But I'm excited to read this and read more of Shea Earnshaw's work, as I like The Wicked Deep. So the next book on this list is probably not going to surprise anyone, but it is The Heartstopper Yearbook by Alice Oseman. I love Heartstopper so much. I'll find later one of those books is again on this list, but the Heartstopper Yearbook came out in November, maybe it was earlier in December of last year, and I got a physical copy of this for Christmas. I'm really excited to read it and dive into and just get back into the Nick and Charlie universe by Alice Oseman. I already know this is going to be probably a 5-star, even though it's not actually really truly a book. I'm going to give it 5 stars anyways. I love Nick and Charlie so much. They are my comfort. So I don't know if I'll read this before Heartstopper Volume 5 comes out, but if I don't, I think it's okay. But I might anyways. It's fairly short, and I'm so excited to add this to my Heartstopper collection. The next book on this list, book number 14, is Julia and the Shark by Kieran Millsgrove Hargrave. I have heard about this book by Gavin, of course, from How to Train Your Gavin, and to me this book sounds utterly beautiful, and it's something I'm really going to like. I love the concept of how it's centered around, I think, mental health issues, and I've heard that it's a really pretty addition. I haven't gotten this book yet, and I've heard the story is really beautiful. And while it'd be my first Kara Mills Grove Heartgrade, and I know she's written other books that don't take place probably in the same universe, but are really close to it, and sort of like possibly other companion novels. And I'm really looking forward to reading this book. I think I'm absolutely going to enjoy this and really love it. The 15th book on this list is actually a book that I finished just today for the Final Books work group, and that is Lore Olympus Volume 3 by Rachel Smythe. As of this moment now, I am all caught up with the Lore Olympus series, and Volume 4 comes out in July near my birthday. This is a 5-star. Hades and Persephone retelling done in more of a modern setting, contemporary romance style. As you saw earlier, I love Greek mythology, having read Percy Jackson and the Olympians and the reread of it, and I have read Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, so I do love the concept of Greek mythology. And this does a Greek mythology story that I've actually never read from before, but am now really absolutely loving it, and I love the Greek mythology story very much now, which is the love story of Hades and Persephone. As far as all the Greek gods go, I do have a soft spot for Poseidon, but my all-time favorite has to be Hades. I know it may seem the one thing that I really love about the Lore Olympus series is the art style is gorgeous. They're very easy to read. And most of us, including me, who have never read the old Greek myth of Hades and Persephone, reading it in this format where it's more modern, they have cell phones, and the underworld is like an actual city. It's wonderfully told, and all I know is they do end up becoming married, but I don't know the full story, and understanding it and now reading it in this format, oh my gosh, it doesn't tug at the heartstrings like Heartstopper does for being all cute. But what it does is it makes you easily fall in love with the characters because you can see them in the different panels, and easy to learn about their more personalities, as I think they do match the personalities of what they were like in the actual Greek mythology actual story. And we just kind of go from there, and I love it when I can read these books. So yes, this is actually one of the books like The Son of Neptune that I've actually read in 2023, so very excited. The next book that I have on this list is a 5-star prediction and my most anticipated release between 23 and one of them, which is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. TJ Klune is my all-time favorite author besides Alice Oseman. So far, I have read 8 to 9 books of TJ Klune's, and I've given all of them 5 stars. This book, In the Lives of Puppets, while the premise possibly sounds like it's not going to be something I really truly enjoy, with it being about like robots and sort of a Pinocchio story, the synopsis of it sounds like it's definitely also going to be LGBTQIA+, and it's going to be found family, which are the two concepts and in books that I absolutely enjoy. I believe this book is also set in the universe of The House in the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. And just because of that, I think I'm absolutely, in reality, even though there's a part of me that thinks I'm not going to like it, knows that I'm absolutely probably going to absolutely end up falling in love with this book as much as I've fallen in love with all the other books that I've read, that he's written so far. This and another book that's on this list are my most anticipated releases of 2023. The next book on this list is going to be Foundryside by Robert Action Bennett. This is the first book in his Foundryside trilogy. I've heard good things about this series. I think from the premises, it sounds like it's going to take a concept of alchemy that Brandon Sanderson matches in his Mistborn trilogy, which so far is my favorite trilogy by Brandon Sanderson, where it's more based off of like metal and foraging and alchemy. I love books where alchemy is definitely featured, and I think I'm absolutely going to really enjoy this. The next book on this list is going to be my second most anticipated release of 2023, which comes out sooner than In the Lives of Puppets, and that is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. This is a sort of prequel book to Prior to the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, which I read back in October of 2022 and absolutely loved, gave it 5 stars. I loved the entire concept of Prior to the Orange Tree and how it was done and the LGBTQIA plus moments. I am hoping for more. I'm hoping the writing style is going to blow me away again. While of course it's Samantha Shannon and it's long, I honestly really don't care. I think I'm absolutely going to love A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon as much as I loved Prior to the Orange Tree. We're actually planning on February rereading Prior to the Orange Tree in anticipation for A Day of Fallen Night. That way I sort of get used to the characters again, as I think the writing style is going to be more similar. And when I was starting to read Prior to the Orange Tree for the first time, the first thing that I struggled with, of course, was getting used to the writing style. But after I got used to the writing style and how the story was told, I absolutely fell in love with it. So look forward to my reread of Prior to the Orange Tree this year, and hopefully, definitely, me reading A Day of Fallen Night. The 19th book on this list is The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. The reason why I'm putting this book on this list is I think the absolute story on this is really cool. I'm actually hoping to read this book towards the end of the year in October, and this book is about witches. So it's about this town where there's a witch, and the town sacrifices babies to the witch. The witch will feed them starlight, and they grow up happy. But one child, the witch ends up feeding moonlight, which we all know is the source of magic, and the girl develops magical powers and becomes a witch. And I think it's going to be that story of the young girl growing up and discovering what happened and coming to terms with everything. I've heard it's beautifully told. Steph from Steph Loves and both Jade from Jade Reads cried while reading this book. And so I think I'm absolutely going to love this middle grade. The next book that I have on this list, and is the last actually physical book that I own that is on this list, and that is Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. This is actually my first Anthony Doerr book that I've not heard of, but I actually own physically and are actually wanting to read. Price from Press Peruses is hosting Tackling Tomes book club in which you tackle tomes. And actually this book technically falls a little bit short under, at least the copy I have. It's actually 574 pages. But the concept of this book sounds really exciting to me. It sounds like the concept of Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor, with it being about a library and books and about being a mystery. It's intertwined, imagination. It sounds really, really cool. I think it's probably going to absolutely drag me in, and I'm going to fall absolutely in love. I've heard Anthony Doerr's writing style is really amazing and along lines those of Laini Taylor, and I love Strange the Dreamer, and I'm looking forward to finishing off that duology and reading Muse of Nightmares. Hopefully in 2023, but we'll see. But I've heard the writing style from Anthony Doerr is a lot similar, and if I like this book, we will most likely read All the Light We Cannot See, which is one of his other books that I've heard is really, really great as well, and also beautifully told. So yeah, I'm looking forward to reading Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr in 2023. Book number 21 on this list is Seasonal Fears by Sean McGuire. This is the second book in her Alchemical Journeys series. I read Middle Game last year in 2022, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. I love the concept of alchemy in any sort of book, and with alchemy being the main focus in this book, And the series, I really enjoyed it. I liked Seasonal Fears. I've heard kind of mixed feelings about Seasonal Fears, as I've heard it doesn't follow the same characters. So that's a little bit disappointing, but I have high hopes. I'm still going to absolutely enjoy it, and that's why it's on this list, as with it, I actually get caught up in the series. Book number 22 on this list is Pure Nessie by Susanna Clarke. I mentioned earlier how I love Greek myths, and this is no surprise, because this book is also on my list. I have heard that this book is really, really interesting. It's short. It is a retelling of the story of Pure Nessie, which I believe is about this guy who lives in a house, and it's a really weird and interesting house. I don't really know much more than that. Also, I know that it's weird and it's very descriptive, and I think I'm going to absolutely really enjoy this book. And then finally on this list, we have another one of my most anticipated releases for 2023. Hopefully, fingers crossed, comes out in 2023, as I haven't heard much, and that is Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman, which is the 5th and final book to the Heartstopper series. I'm not looking forward to reading this book at all, because I'm pretty certain with this one, I'm absolutely probably going to cry. I know I'm going to absolutely love it and give it 5 stars. I just don't want this series to end. I could spend all my life with these characters reading new books. But I believe this book is sort of the ending to this between Heartstopper 5, Solitaire by Alice Oseman, and Nick and Charlie by Alice Oseman. I believe that's how the series goes. I love Nick and Charlie so much. Nick and Charlie, I have found out in 2022, is my comfort series that I will read whenever I am feeling down and depressed and just needing to pick me up. I'm going to turn to the Heartstopper book series by Alice Oseman. So I'm excited to actually have Heartstopper Volume 5 at my collection. I'm not looking forward to reading it because I love Nick and Charlie so much, and I really just don't want the story to end. Those are the 23 books that I hope to read in 2023. I probably won't read all of these books in 2023, but you saw on this list, I've actually read and am currently reading some of these books that are on this list. So, this year we might actually complete this list. If not, most of the books that I didn't finish will end up rolling into my list for 2024. And we'll kind of just go from there. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did, please remember to give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content from me. Down below in the description box, you'll follow my links to my Goodreads and my Storygraph account. You want to see what I'm currently reading in the moment. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and remember, we are the one within the all.